Ravel's harp writing is universally appreciated, and his cadenza in the middle of the piano concerto is no exception. Today we're going to take a look at the Ravel Piano Concerto Harp Cadenza and talk about some of the different techniques used in there and different ideas this can give you for your own harp writing. Hi, I'm Danielle Kuntz. I'm a new music harpist, harp notation coach, and I am here to help you learn how to write for the harp with creativity and confidence. So today we're just going to briefly take a quick look at the Harp Cadenza in the Ravel Piano Concerto. So this Harp Cadenza shows up toward the end of the first movement of the Piano Concerto. The piano has a quasi-cadenza. At the end of that, then the harp comes in with the left-hand harmonics, right-hand glissandi, which we'll talk about in more detail later on. At the end of this cadenza, the trumpet then comes back in with the theme, which then takes the movement back into the finale. So this little cadenza, it's not that difficult, and I say that carefully. This is usually one of the first excerpts that college students will study, usually their freshman year. The ones that will come before this are usually the Tchaikovsky Nutcracker, Swan Lake, and usually Mahler 5, and then this one. However, I don't want to say that this is easy because this actually uses advanced techniques. So even though this is a cadenza that professionals can play with little to no practice once they've learned it, this is something that most of us could probably bring back comfortably in a day or two for a concert. That doesn't mean it's necessarily easy because intermediate students are still learning these techniques. So let's go ahead and just take a look at it. So the first technique that we have going on are these right-hand glissandi. The challenge with these is trying to make them seamless. You don't really want to be hearing the turnaround. So one drill that harpists will tend to do is get really comfortable with starting the next glissando as the one before it is ending. So standing at the top. And in this specific movement, you want these glissandis to be very light, although still audible in a concert hall. So then the left hand really has two voices going on here. It has the melody and the harmonics. Along with chords that come in every measure or so to provide some harmonic support. These are a little tricky just because of how wide they are, and there's really not much margin for error. This cadenza itself has a very thin texture, so you're going to be hearing everything. Plus, in the orchestration, this is harp solo. The celli are accompanying this, with a quiet drone, essentially. But this is harp solo here. So this left hand, you have to be very careful with the harmonics. And then when you put that together with both hands, the layers that you have, the first important thing is going to be the harmonics. Second thing will be the left-hand chords. Third thing will be the glissandi. So at the end of that phrase, you muffle and then you very quietly but quickly change pedals and start the next phrase. And that is that. So as we take a look at this, you see that there's really 3 layers going on in this cadenza. You have the glissandi, you have the harmonics, you have the chords. Even though this is relatively easy for professionals, that's still a lot that's going on at once. And Ravel was pretty careful about doing that. I want you to notice that on top of that, he only includes pedal changes between the phrases. And I think that was a really smart choice because number one, this texture is extremely thin. So if you had chord changes happening, you would probably hear those happening in some of the lower strings just with the sound of the pedal change, so you might not be able to hide those pedal changes quite as well as you ordinarily would. The second thing is that there's already a lot going on. So if you added in on top of the glissandi, the harmonics, the wide left-hand chords, if you added in pedal changes on top of that, that would likely upset the balance of the harp. And all of these techniques require really careful balance. So Ravel was very strategic. So the last thing I want to mention is that Ravel actually uses a very similar texture to this in the cadenza of the introduction in Allegro, which is one of our quasi-harp concerti. It's really a chamber piece, but because it has such a big harp part, we've adopted it into our set of concertos. Now the textures is just a little bit different here. It's really more focused on harmonics, glissandi, and pedal changes rather than harmonics, chords, and glissandi. So it's a little bit different, but it's still a very similar texture with pairing the harmonics with the glissandi. So just to give you an idea of how this sounds. And then it goes into only harmonics. But Ravel still kind of explored that set of textures that he layered on together. So there, that is the Harp Cadenza from the Ravel Piano Concerto. The takeaway I want you to remember from this is be strategic if you're going to be layering in techniques, especially beyond just the simple playing of the strings. Try to choose, maybe 2 to 3 things at a time, and be aware of how those techniques can affect the balance of the harp, and try to minimize other things that may pose a challenge. So in this instance, using the glissandi, the large chords, and the harmonics required really delicate balance. So reducing the pedal changes was something that helped enable that balance. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. If there's other reviews of harp excerpts or harp pieces you would like to see, let me know that as well. In the meantime, stay tuned for more videos, and if you'd like to stay in touch, I invite you to subscribe to my Harp Tips newsletter, where I send out monthly or bi-monthly harp tips straight to your inbox. Until next time, bye.